Wow, it's almost strange to think back, isn't it? When AI coding help was just like suggesting the next word or maybe a line.
Totally. Now these tools are practically collaborators, sometimes working on whole chunks of projects with us.
Exactly. And speaking of how fast things are moving, we've got some really interesting stuff to dig into today. We're going deep on the latest update version 0.50 for the AI coding platform Cursor.
Yeah, and this is a really timely thing to look at, especially with what's happening in the AI coding assistant world.
Right.
Our sources point out a pretty big move. OpenAI just bought WindSurf.
Which used to be Codium, right? Cursor's like main competitor.
That's the one. And it makes Cursor's own story even more fascinating.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
Well, before OpenAI bought WindSurf, they actually went to Anysphere, that's Cursor's parent company, twice, tried to acquire them.
Twice. Wow. And Anysphere said no.
They did. They decided to play independent, which, I mean, that says a lot about their confidence, their ambition.
It really does. Okay, so our mission for you today is pretty clear. We want to pull out the most important changes in this v0.50 update. What do they actually mean for how you code day to day?
Think of this as the fast track to getting up to speed, whether you're using these tools constantly or just trying to keep tags on where things are headed.
And we've got good sources, the official update notes, but also perspective from someone who actually uses Cursor every single day. So a nice mix.
Yeah, should give us a solid picture.
All right, let's unpack it. First up, something that sounds uh, potentially huge. How Cursor deals with your whole code base context.
Yes, this is a big one. Previously, one of the maybe frustrations users had was Cursor sometimes felt like it didn't see the whole picture.
Right, like it only knew about the file you had open, maybe?
Sort of. It could be inefficient scanning or just not grasping the connections across the project. Less accurate help sometimes.
Okay, so what's changed in 0.50?
They've introduced this new feature called at folders.
At folders. Okay, and that unlocks this wider understanding. How does it work?
Basically, yeah, it lets you explicitly tell the AI, hey, pay attention to this entire folder or even the whole project. You just toggle full folder contents in the settings.
Simple enough.
And there's a neat little visual cue, too. If a folder or file you've included is really big, you'll see a little icon on the context pill, as they call it.
Ah, a little warning, like you're about to feed the AI a lot of code.
Kind of, yeah. And this ties right into the code base indexing feature that Cursor already had.
Okay.
If you turn on indexing and use it folders, the AI gets way, way better at understanding how everything in your project fits together.
So the key things are like better token usage, which is always good,
Hmm.
and just much smarter context for the AI,
Exactly. More precise context. That's the goal.
which for you listening should mean the AI is just much more helpful on those bigger tasks, right? The ones that
Yeah.
need that project-wide view. Sounds like a direct fix for a common pain point.
Definitely seems like it.
Now, the update also talks about something called a background agent. Sounds intriguing, maybe a bit futuristic.
It does sound cool, yeah. It's still flagged as an early preview, so keep that in mind.
Okay.
But the idea is pretty powerful. It basically allows multiple AI agents to work on tasks for you at the same time
Multiple agents.
in parallel.
Yeah, in their own separate remote environments.
Whoa. So, what kind of things can these background agents actually do? Is it just simple stuff for now?
Well, even in this early stage, the sources say they're proving useful for things like fixing small bugs, maybe investigating an issue across a few files,
Okay.
even prepping medium-sized pull requests, apparently.
Really? That's pretty substantial.
It is, and you can monitor what they're doing, give them more instructions as they go, or jump in if needed.
So, you can kind of delegate bigger tasks.
That's the idea. Since it's early, the official docs are the best place for the latest details, but the potential is definitely there for handling more complex stuff asynchronously.
You could like kick off a refactoring job with one agent, have another look into a bug report, all while you're working on something else.
Exactly. Huge time saver potential. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, next item, max mode. Sounds intense. What's the story there? It's available for more models now.
That's right. The big news is Max Mode is now an option for all their top tier AI models, not just one or two. And they've also simplified the pricing. It's just based on token usage now.
Ah, okay. And they pitch it as offering complete control. What does that translate to?
It seems positioned as the heavy duty option for when you're tackling really complex coding problems and need the absolute most power the AI can give you.
Like what kind of problem specifically?
The update mentions tasks needing a ton of context, maybe really sophisticated kinds of responses, or things that involve using specific tools within the AI.
So implementing a big new feature maybe, where it needs to understand lots of existing code.
Exactly. Or generating really complex logic. You just choose it from the model selector.
And the regular mode is still there for everyday stuff.
Oh yeah, normal mode isn't going anywhere. That's for your standard coding assistants. Max mode is the turbo button.
The turbo button, I like that. And the token-based pricing. You mentioned it's familiar if you used CLI tools. Can you briefly explain tokens for listeners who might not know?
Sure, think of tokens as like pieces of words or code that the AI processes, input and output. So a more complex task or asking for a lot more code generation naturally uses up more tokens.
Got it. So max mode might cost more per use because it's doing heavier lifting and using more tokens.
Precisely. It might not be something you use all the time because of the cost, but it's there when you hit those really big, tricky development hurdles.
Makes sense. A powerful tool for specific situations. And they mentioned older max modes are being phased out.
Yeah, they recommend updating Cursor to make sure you have access to this new unified max mode across the best models.
Good tip. Okay, moving on to actually changing the code. There's a refreshed inline edit with agent handoff. Sounds like they've tweaked how you make quick changes.
That's right. The inline edit, CMD plus K or Control plus K usually has a new look and some cool new options.
Like what?
Well, you can now do full file editing right there in that inline view, which is handy for changes that are mostly contained in one file.
Okay, more scope.
But the really interesting bit is the agent handoff, which is Command L, I think.
Agent handoff. What happens there? You just pass the code off.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You select some code, hit the shortcut, and it sends that code block over to an AI agent for like more serious editing.
Ah, so it's like escalating the task.
Exactly. That's where you can use the agent's deeper understanding, especially if the change needs to happen across multiple files or if you want more control over how the changes are made.
It's kind of like asking a colleague for help, maybe. Inline edit is like asking them to fix a typo, but handoff is like giving them a section and saying, can you refactor this based on these rules?
That's a great analogy. It gives you flexibility. Quick fix, inline.
Mm.
More complex job, handoff.
Choose the right tool for the task. Makes sense. Now, the source we saw mention Windows compatibility for this handoff feature was maybe
Yeah.
a bit unclear.
Yeah, they specifically asked Windows users for feedback on how well it's working. So, something to be aware of if you're on Windows.
Okay. And building on editing, there's also fast edits for long files with Agent. Oh, man. Anyone who's waited for an AI to slowly process a giant file just to change one line will appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely. This sounds like a direct hit on that frustration. The agent now has a search and replace tool built in.
So it doesn't have to read the entire file anymore.
Exactly. It can target just the specific bits you want to change. Huge potential efficiency gain for large files.
That sounds amazing, like a genuine game changer for dealing with legacy code or just big projects. Any idea how much faster it actually is?
The sources don't give hard numbers yet, but just the logic of targeting sections instead of the whole file implies it'll be noticeably faster.
Yeah, you'd think so.
They're rolling it out first for the Anthropic models, like Claude 3, with plans for wider support later.
Okay, so definitely something to look forward to if you work with big files often.
For sure. Could save a lot of waiting around.
All right, we've covered context, background tasks, power modes, editing. What else? Multi-root workspaces. This sounds relevant for people juggling lots of projects.
It really is. This is straightforward, but super useful. Cursor now officially supports having multiple separate project folders open in the same window.
Oh, nice. Like in VS Code.
Exactly like that. And the key thing is, each project folder you open is automatically indexed and available to the AI.
So you can easily switch between, say, your front-end repo and your back-end API repo without closing and reopening.
Precisely, even if they live in totally different places on your hard drive. Much smoother workflow.
Yeah, I can see that being really helpful for microservices or just related libraries. Grab a snippet here, check something there.
Definitely streamlines things. And the source mentioned this connects somehow to cursor rules or project rules in the settings.
Right. How does that fit in?
Well, the details weren't super specific in the update notes, but it strongly suggests that these project-specific settings will work nicely with multi-root.
So you could have different AI configurations or context rules for each open project.
That seems to be the implication, which is important, right? You wouldn't want the AI getting confused and pulling context from project A when you're working in project B.
No, definitely not. Okay, wow, that's a lot of new stuff in one update. If you had to step back and look at the whole v0.50 package,
Yeah.
what really jumps out as the biggest leaps forward?
For me, it's really two main things. The full code-based context stuff with app folders and that background agent system.
Deeper understanding and parallel processing.
Yeah. Those feel like fundamental improvements to how the AI can actually help on a real project. It's not just about knowing more code, it's about understanding the connections, the architecture.
Like giving a detective the whole building blueprint, not just one room's layout.
That's a good way to put it. The quality of insight just goes way up.
So better understanding, plus the ability to delegate bigger tasks to run in the background, that does sound significant.
It really does. And when you add in the faster large file edits, the better inline editing, the multi-root support, it paints a picture of, well, significant progress, as one of our sources said.
Yeah.
And you have to see it in the context of the market, right? With the OpenAI buying WindSurf. Cursor seems to be doubling down, really pushing innovation to stay competitive.
Making a statement that they're still very much in the game.
Exactly. And the fact that the daily user we looked at was genuinely impressed, that tells you these aren't just minor tweaks. They feel impactful in practice.
Absolutely. There's a really dynamic space right now, this AI developer tool world. Okay, so just to wrap up the key benefits for you, the listener, from this Cursor v0.50 update.
You're getting much better code-based understanding from the AI.
The ability to run multiple AI tasks at once in the background.
A powerful max mode for those really tough problems.
Smarter, more flexible code editing, including faster work on huge files.
And finally, smoother workflows if you juggle multiple projects.
It's a really comprehensive set of improvements.
It is. And the bottom line really is it's all aimed at making the AI assistant more capable and more efficient, freeing you up to focus on the harder problems, the creative parts of building software.
So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on. Seeing these big strides from Cursor, especially with the competitive moves happening like OpenAI's acquisition, what does this signal about where AI coding assistants are going next? How might these tools fundamentally change not just how we write code, but how we think about software development entirely in the coming years?
Yeah, definitely something to ponder as you integrate these tools more into your own work.